Welcome to the Strong Enough Podcast, your relationship wellness podcast. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share with us how after 40 years of addiction, depression, and bad relationships, he made the conscious decision to change his life. Please help me in welcoming Kellan Fluckiger. Kellan, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm outrageously good. Thank you for having me. I enjoy people that are doing podcasts, especially those that are talking about tough things and making it their business to add good to the world.
Thank you so much. I have found it to be very fulfilling for myself. I think I like to tell myself I do it for the guests in the audience, but I'm getting a lot out of it as well. So thank you for being here and for saying that. I would love to start with a little bit about your background. Tell us about Kellan.
Well, I've lived 4 or 5 lives, so which life would be a good one to start with?
Gosh, you know what? I'm going to let you pick.
Okay. Well, I started, I was raised in what would have been sort of an average California towns, born in San Francisco, raised in the Bay Area. My parents stayed married. The weirdness started because my mom was real fanatic about religious and, forcing certain behaviors, and the discipline that we had today would get a child removed from the home. It would be felony child abuse, that sort of thing. I remember hiding in the locker room in high school, not wanting to change last because I didn't want anybody to see the black and blue on my back side. Anyway, so the real upshot of that was I came away believing that I was a flawed, inadequate, broken person. And of course, part of the thing is you can't talk to anybody and you don't share any of that stuff. And if there's something wrong with you, suck it up and get over it. And so I ended up living in a state of active depression and never talking to anyone about it from about 13, which is when I remember first turning to drugs to numb the pain, not because of peer pressure, but even alone, until I was 53, which is when I finally had enough of the ups and downs, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute, to talk to somebody. So I lived all my life trying to prove that I was okay, failing to get the okay stamp. I didn't fail at career. I had very successful career in the energy business. I was a high-powered consultant, made a lot of money, and as C-level executive, all kinds of stuff. And so from the outside, people would say, you have everything, you like, a lot of money, a lot of this, that, and the other. And the truth is, behind the scenes, I burned through relationships. I was a disaster. I was an addict. I was in and out of rehab. And, kind of like movie stuff. If one side is this and the other side, oh, wow. And the backside is, holy crap. Yeah, that. So I lived that until everything changed radically and suddenly in the end of 2007. So coming on 14 years ago, which is when I was about 52 or 3. So about 40 years of that up and down dance of faking one thing, being another, being a functioning addict, hiding, self-sabotage, just you can picture, nothing you can imagine would be worse than it actually was. Let's put it that way. I was married and divorced 3 times, in and out of everything that anybody ever heard of. So that's kind of the story up until 2007.
And then everything changed, yes?
Everything changed, and it wasn't even my fault. It's we all have the sense that there's something larger than us that exists. There's something outside of us. Call it the universe, God, the divine, whatever you want to call it. We all know and feel, and even people. It's funny when you see the desperate attempt of governments, especially in the U.S. I mean, my wife and I are both dual national. We live in Canada now, but we're both U.S. and Canadian citizens. But when you see the desperate attempt to remove any trace of divinity or any of that stuff from politics, yet when the coronavirus strikes and everybody's talking about talking to God, You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when things happen, then. So anyway, we all know that's there. And finally, I guess God had enough of my wasting my life. And so in August of 2007, I had a series of several, two of which I'll tell you, divine interventions, things that can't really happened to me that I interpreted as a really strong invitation to change my life. And so I did. The first one was, it was a Friday. It's a Friday night. I'd come home from work and I was getting ready to go out and start my weekend binge. At that time, I was about a $3,000 a week cocaine addict. And that is Scarface amounts, that's piles. So I was getting ready to go out and binge for the weekend and do whatever. And for some reason, before I went out I was living with four alone. I was single again for the third time. I had four teenagers that were some of my kids that were living with me as a single dad. And I felt like I needed to turn on the television. Now that might not seem weird, except I didn't watch TV and I didn't know how to turn it on. I had a great biggest one you could buy because that was money. So of course you have all the gear, right? But I didn't know how to turn it on. And I felt like I wanted to watch it bad enough that I asked one of my teenage daughters, she, showed me how to turn it on. And when it came on to a program titled Intervention. I don't know if you know what that is, but I didn't know anything that was on TV. So I watched about 10 minutes and the protagonist in the show, the episode was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. So I watched about 10 minutes of that and I said, I'm not watching this crap. And I turned it off and got ready to go. And for some reason, I felt absolutely compelled to turn the TV on. Now I knew how this time. So I turned it on and it was about a half hour or something later, or 40 minutes or whatever. And the show started over. At the beginning, no, I didn't have a DVR. No, it wasn't on the schedule. No. It just did. So it scared the crap out of me. So I thought, okay, I should watch this. So I watched the show. It didn't go well. The guy turned down all the help and it ended badly and everything else. But it freaked me out. So I didn't go anywhere. I went to bed. And so instead of going out to party, I went to bed. And then I went to sleep and I spent the next long time having an out-of-body experience. I didn't know where I was, but the experience I had was being in hell. So I was seeing a parade of all of the events of my life, not in an angry way, just there they are before my eyes. And I had this really, really intense suffering, like being in hell. And after I didn't know how long, there was a voice that said, it was soft, it is enough. And I woke up and it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So for 17 hours plus, I'd been somewhere. I got up. I realized, okay, I've been invited to do something different here. So I threw away everything I had, which is probably $1,000 worth of stuff, and just decided I have to quit. I have to quit everything I'm doing and change my life. Well, that meant walking away from millions of dollars in contracts because I was making a lot of money doing what I was doing. But I knew if I kept doing what I was doing, then I would keep doing what I'm doing. So we got to not do that. So that was the first thing. The second thing was right before I didn't resign immediately. It was about 3 or 4 weeks later. 2 weeks later, I got tickets. Now, because of the positions I had, I used to get free stuff to everything: front row seats, box seats, floor seats, backstage passes to concerts and sporting events and everything, just because I made decisions that affected a lot of money and a lot of companies. And so people used to give me stuff. So I got 2 tickets to a classical concert. The fellow's name's Yo-Yo Ma. Now, if you know classical music, that's like, yeah. And if you don't, that's like, what? Okay. He's fabulous. And so I had 2 tickets. And of course I was single again. And so I gave the other ticket away. And so I said to the groups that I managed, I said, who likes classical music? And so a lady in one of the groups that I managed said, I do. And I said, have I ever given you anything before? No. Okay, fine. Here. See you there. So went to the concert. And this was 2 weeks after the other had happened. So 2 weeks, stone cold sober. I went from $3,000 a week to 0 in one day. So I'm sitting at the concert halfway through, and this feeling came over me, and I recognized it from 2 weeks before. And a voice in my mind said, you need to marry this woman. And I thought, you're out of your mind. I said it. You're crazy. Wires crossed, a message for somebody else, not me, right? And so later that night, we were backstage because, of course, they were backstage passes. And it came back and said, comma, and you need to tell her tonight. And I argued furiously, but you don't win those arguments. So I did, and it went about like you would have expected. And not to mention the fact that I could have been sued for harassment or whatever because she worked in one of my groups. She didn't do anything. She, I just thought it was weird and laughed. But within 2 weeks, she had her own set of experiences. And I then resigned my position. She had told me she was going to come with me. And I went in after I resigned. I went into her office and shut the door. And I said, you may want to rethink all this because I just quit. And I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. And she looked at me and she said, I'm in. And that was 14 years ago. So that was the second piece. I got sober in one day, and I got given the help that I needed to deal with the depression, because the other relationships I'd attracted broken people, like you often do when I don't know anything about anything. One woman I was married to had been raised by an alcoholic stepdad, and she'd never gotten any help. And another one her mom had committed suicide when she was 12. And, and I didn't know how to be helpful. I only knew how to do one thing. I was make money. So I did that, and everything else was a disaster. So those are the two things that dramatically changed everything. In August and September of 2007, I set out on an adventure, walked away from that whole entire industry, and decided after some thinking and whatever to become a coach. And my wife's name, of course, is Joy. And, you can't make this stuff up, right?
Right.
So her name's Joy, and she has been an angel, clearly trying to help me. The first, few years were difficult. I didn't know how to have a relationship. I'd failed every one of them. I didn't know how to have a friend. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. I didn't know how to trust. I didn't know how to be open. I didn't know how to be anybody's friend. I didn't know how to do any of that. So, she was spectacular. Found therapists for me to talk to, looked them up based on who I was and how I acted, and read their bios. And, this guy might be interesting. Try him. And just insane. So that's the short version. I became a coach. Since that time, I've written 13 books. I have 6 more underway. I have a client base all over the world, and I am dedicated to one thing, and that is helping people understand who they really are and then manifesting that truth. So that's the short version.
And there was a lot packed into that short version as well. I love it.
How long you wanted me to go on? I said I've written all those books, and one of them I finally wrote was Tightrope of Depression, My Journey from Darkness, Despair, and Death to Light, Love, and Life. This came out in 2015, so 6 years ago. I waited a year after I finished it to publish it because I was so scared that people who hadn't really known what was going on would read the book and think, holy cow, et cetera, et cetera. But so I've written a lot of stuff as part of my own therapeutic healing and help, and also helping others. And that's all I do today. So is that telling you about me enough?
It is, because now we can dig in a little bit.
Have at it.
I want to ask you mentioned a couple experiences that you termed divine intervention. You also talked about your family being kind of fanatical in a religious sense when you were young and being abused. Did that affect your feelings on religion as you grew up in that type of environment?
That's a very good question and a very natural one. Some people, when they are exposed to that kind of fanaticism, sort of blame God and hate God about everything. And I knew that what was going on was wrong. I remember wishing I would die sometimes at the hands of punishment, thinking that's the only way she'll get in trouble, referring to my mom. Mm-hmm. And she'll get in trouble. And the idea you go talk to somebody, again, never crossed my mind, because you didn't do that. I always still knew something was out there. I just knew it wasn't like that. So it didn't make me not think there was God. It just made me know it didn't look like that. That was wrong, and that wasn't okay. So that's how I reconciled it. And when I had those divine events, I knew. Things. Some things you just know. I knew to the core of my soul that I was being issued an invitation. Like, it seems like the rules for the divine is they don't make us do stuff. It's always an invitation. And so that's how I took it. And I could have said no. It was scary. I mean, I literally had no clue what I was going to do.
What do you think made that time different? Because you said you went from a $3,000 a week cocaine habit, which is crazy, to nothing. And previously you had been in and out of rehabs, correct? What do you think was different in that time?
Well, sometimes when I'd been to rehab, I was there because, like, one time I went, the woman I was married to at the time found out that I never got in trouble at work or fired or anything like that. But my woman I was married to at the time found out, and, she said, you need to go do something about this. So I did, but I wasn't ready. And so I had a friend mailed me stuff in rehab. So I wasn't even honest in the rehab stuff. And you're not supposed to be able to do that because they look at your mail and everything else, but we figured out a way and all that jazz. So, I was seriously not into it. Sometimes I had 30 or 40 day, breaks. I knew it wasn't okay. There was nothing that made me think, oh, this is how I want to live my life. It just was what was going on. And so I tried at different times. The difference was it was just an invitation. I mean, I was 52 years old at the time. And it's like, maybe I'm that thick-headed and it takes a 2x4. But if I don't accept this invitation, am I going to do it when I'm 62, 72? Like, something has to change. I'm not doing this anymore. And that, when people ask me all the time, how do you do? The first thing is to make a choice. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I have to do. I don't know what help I need. I don't care. I'm going to talk to, and I don't care. I'm just not doing this anymore. That's step one.
How empowering was it to make that decision?
Powerful.
Or accept the invitation. To accept the invitation.
It was liberating. It was terrifying. The event, I mean, I describe it to you like I did, but as it unfolded, it was the most horrifying experience. I possess no language to describe what I imagine, if there is a place like hell, will feel like. I was shocked. I was angry. I was helpless, hopeless of myself for what had happened, and this parade of who I was, and this, there were times during that I attempted suicide a couple of times. I mean, I'd hated myself that much, not at that event, but before that. And then what I thought is, look, if the divine cares this much, like I have to do this. I have to do this.
Wow. I just want to sit with that for a second, because it is so powerful to hear you talk about it in that way, and to have it happened to you later in life, but you still have so much life left. So was it like you were reborn at 52?
Yes. Yes, it was. And what that lets me know, one of the things I teach and talk about when I hear or when I speak at events or my books and things, regardless of what has come before, it is never too late to matter and have a big impact if you make a choice to discover, develop, and live into your divine gifts. Never.
I completely agree with that. And I think that is where a lot of people struggle, is that they think it's too late for them. I'm too far along. I'm not worth it. There's no hope for me. Talk to those people.
Uh, okay. I spent 40 years not talking to anyone, lying. I was a master liar, pathological. I was a really, really good method actor. And what I mean by that is a method actor, the process there is you become the character. They call them legends. Mm-hmm. I was so good. I remember saying, so good or so dumb, I don't know. I remember saying to myself often, I don't feel anything. I can be whoever you need me to be in a powerful, convincing, and meaningful way. And then when the lights go off, it's like turning off a switch. I have no identity. I feel nothing. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what anything is. Why I ruined so many relationships. I didn't know how to love. I didn't know what it was. Everything I had experienced was this conditional process of you're okay if. And so that's how I defined life. And so I'm not saying my situation or my upbringing or my habit was the worst there ever was, because I'm sure I can find in 10 minutes, 10 people that have different things that are for them the worst. The learning for me is, look, you have the same choice I did. You can keep going the road you're going, and you know where that road goes, and so did I. It goes to more of the same. And if you're doing any of the 12-step thing, it says, it leads to prison or death. Okay, or worse, or doing things to, more things you're sorry about. You know where that road goes. And you, me, any of us, we can make excuses all day long until we no longer draw breath. And then we proved that we could keep going down that road. Or you can slam your fist or gently put it down, or your foot, or whatever you have to put down, and say, I refuse to live this life anymore. I don't know what I have to do. I don't know who I have to talk to. I don't know where I have to go. I don't know what I have to lose. And I lost millions of dollars, and I walked away from contracts and all kinds of crazy stuff. I've testified before Congress. I had a contract with the Queen of England. I mean, the level of stuff that I had is like way up there. None of it matters. None of it matters. So step one is to just say, I don't care what I have to do. I'm not doing this. And then when you fall on your face and you fail, get up and say it again. When you fall on your face and fail, get up and say it again. Because the only other option is to quit. And you already know where that road goes. So that's what I would say.
How stressful was it for you when you were living basically those two separate lives? When you were in a place of being that high-powered businessman and being successful on the outside, but then really being a shell on the inside.
Well, I don't know how anyone else would do that. What I did is I wallowed in my stuff. So I had a neighbor that used to tell me he had garage envy. I had 6 cars and high-powered motorcycles and, great big decked out Hummer. And, I tried to do that, to create okayness by doing stupid things like spending $5,000 on a stereo for the Hummer, for loud music I didn't even like, and the biggest TV I could buy, and I didn't know how to turn it on. That dance of you can never get enough of what you don't need, because what you don't need doesn't satisfy you. And I was the poster child for that. Just buy more. But I had 100 pairs of jeans. I was a jeans snob. I had 100 pairs of designer jeans in my closet, 30 or 40 of which still had tags on them. I never wore them. And I bought more just because there was a new season and you could go buy the latest, who cares, Diesel, Urban, Dinkweed, I don't even remember. Okay, so yeah, you play the game. Anything to take away from the truth of the emptiness of your life.
As you were growing up with depression, did you realize at the time that you were suffering from depression, or did that come much later that you had that realization?
Here's how effective the brainwashing was. The idea, mental illness had, huge stigma. So 50 years, like nut house people, white men in white suits, straight jackets, all that sort of thing. The idea that you would have something wrong like that was unthinkable. If you did, it's your fault. Just suck it up and act better. Just behave like you're supposed to, kind of language. I was so thoroughly indoctrinated by the idea that it was me. I was evil. That the idea that I had something wrong with me, like depression, not only didn't occur to me, but it was hard for me to accept. Like when Joy and I first started, I went to talk to a counselor. I needed to control that situation. So I told him things that were wrong and all the stuff that had happened. And now I learned this and this and that. And I'd be self-psychoanalyzing and, just controlling the conversation. And I'm sure they were sitting there going, yeah, right. Okay, cool. And it took me a year or two before I could even talk to one and tell the truth. And so that's what I mean by I don't know what you have to do. I had no idea. The first time one of them looked at me straight in the eyes and he said, "You've been suffering with MDD, as far as I'm concerned, for your whole life. And you've never done anything about it." He said, "I'm surprised you're breathing, walking, that you're alive. That's a miracle by itself. So let's start from that." And I didn't even know what to say. MDD's, DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Major Depressive Disorder. And, one of them thought it might be bipolar because on the one end, I have super high energy times, but that's just Kellan. So whatever, I give it whatever name you want. What I decided isn't I'm going to get rid of it. What I decided is I'm not going to let it define my life. I had a client who she was taking antidepressants for 20 something years, and she still had this sort of victim, and I thought that's the epitome of the solution to the problem is out there. Give me a pill that will fix me, then I'll be okay. And even though I was working with a shrink and trying different antidepressants and doing all kinds of stuff, that framework is not okay. I'm going to run my life. And if we try this tool and that tool, and I talk to this shrink and that one and try this pill, I'm still moving the levers because I'm accountable, I'm responsible. And that probably is the thing that saved me, is I refused after I figured out the whole way I've been living my life's wrong. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I don't have to do that. I'm okay. I might be busted, but I'm okay. Now I can be okay and work on this bustedness, but it doesn't have to be I suck until this.
Was it hard for you to make that change in attitude and not be the victim of your circumstances and take control instead?
Yes, extremely difficult. It's something that I had to work on. I still work on all the time. I create all kinds of things to, it's helpful in my profession as a coach to help people who want to, overcome obstacles and reach their next level. It doesn't matter, business, relationships, money, whatever. Because what you find out is no matter what a client comes to you for. I had a guy that owned a pharmacy, wanted to double his income. I had a guy that owns a marketing agency, wants to have different kinds of clients. And I had somebody who had a drug problem, like me. What we're doing is the decoration. The key is who you're being. Like what you're being right now is you're being the pharmacy owner that makes this much money. So don't say, what do I have to do to make more money? The real question is, who do you have to be the guy that does the things that make more money? That's where the power is. Because if you change what you're doing without changing who you're being, it doesn't last. That's why there's so much recidivism in rehabilitation. Because when you try to get off drugs or alcohol or whatever, you're white knuckling. You're white knuckling your way to change. Well, if you change who you're being, I'm no longer a person that uses this. I am now a person who deals with things this way. Oh, well, of course I don't use that because I'm this.
How did you learn that? Because that's such a better way to address the issues that people deal with and to, I don't want to say fix the issues, but to change your life.
Everything starts with being. So I could show up on a podcast episode like this as a person who's had these terrible things and wasted 40 years and a lot of money and a lot of dumb things and bad relationships and hate myself. And I have 10 kids. Some of them still don't talk to me because of the upheaval and the drama and all that other. And for a long time, I hated myself for that. And it was my fault and everything about it was wrong. And if I'd just done this and that and the other, that's another place where Joy was an angel. She said, look, first of all, you have no idea if that's true. No matter what you've done, you have no idea what it would be like now. And second of all, they have responsibility to choose to accept who you are now and to desire to create relationship. You can't make them do that. And I'm saying it fast because we're in this sort of format, but that takes place over time. And so how did I learn that? Because I refused to give up the levers. I'll tell you exactly how that came to consciousness. I went to a shrink's office. This particular shrink loved what's called shamanic breath work. It's where you breathe in a particular fashion and it creates an altered state of consciousness. And so we used to go talk, and he was 10 years older than me. He was 75, long hair, ex-hippie, PhD forensic psychologist, fun guy, probably the funnest shrink I went to talk to. But we would talk a little bit and he'd say, okay, that sounds like a good thing. Let's take that to the mat. And so I'd lay down, he'd play this music, I'd do this breath work, and you doing this breath work a certain way. And if you're familiar with shamanic breath work, you know what it is. If you're not, you don't. I can't teach it right now, but it creates an altered state of consciousness. And in that place, I had this vision kind of thing. It's about in Hindu, there's those, I think they're women goddesses. They have the headdresses and all that sort of stuff. I was having a conversation with this one lady. No, I wasn't high. I was stone cold sober. But we were having this conversation, and she said to me, from the place of being, the doing becomes trivial. So after all these sessions, a shrink would say, so what did you get? And this time I said, well, I was talking to this lady and I told him some stuff. And I said, and she told me from the place of being, the doing becomes trivial. And he was sitting over there and he spun around in his chair and his head snapped over and he said, can I use that? And I said, yeah, sure. But that's the essence. When you choose to be, like if I am a person of honesty and I speak only truth, let's say that's who I am. Because I said so. Like, I don't need anyone's permission. I make that declaration. I am that. And that doesn't mean I won't fail. Those who dare greatly fail greatly and carry a big blanket of forgiveness. Fine. But let's say I am that. Then every decision I have, it's not hard to make. I speak only truth because that's who I am. So when I have to say something, I say the truth. I act the truth. I be the truth. I don't try to fool. Because why? Because I said so. This is who I am. And so everything starts with who you decide to be, and you don't need anybody's permission.
I love that, because so many people, particularly people who have been through challenges, who have been abused or lived with trauma, they really need or desire that external validation. They need to be told that they're good enough or they're okay. But your way is really putting all of that on yourself and just declaring it. And so it is.
I have never gotten the stamp of approved from my mom. She's still alive. My dad passed away a number of years ago, but he wasn't the one. Now, she's changed as a completely different person. She's not the way. In fact, there were two groups of three kids. She got married really young. She had my older sister and then me and my brother. My older sister got it as bad as I did. Well, I can see that it ruined her. She never had a relationship. She never got married. She's quite heavy and she's had a really tough life. Okay, let's see. I didn't know any about why until now, but after the stuff I've done for the last 12 or 13 years, it's like, okay, this is not complicated, right? The younger three, so there are two groups of three in the family, the older three, and then the younger three, there was a gap in between of several years, 7 or 8 years between my younger brother and the oldest of the others. They had a completely different experience. My mom grew up in there somewhere, right? And so when they looked and read the stuff in Tightrope, my sister, who's in that other group of three, didn't believe it. She said that did not happen. Can't. And so I'm never going to get the stamp of approval that I was craving. I'm never going to get an apology. I'm never going to get anything. And my heart is completely clear. I don't need that. I respect and love and honor each person on their journey from the deepest part of my heart. And so I'm speaking to one of your listeners right now. Whatever you think you need to be whole is in you. It's in your relationship with the divine, because you're the same creation that I am. And no external person ever, under any circumstance, can change that or take it away from you, period.
That is so meaningful I think you were speaking to more than one listener or viewer, for sure. I know that for a lot of people, it is a struggle to forgive others. It is also a struggle to say, I'm never going to hear, I'm sorry. Like you said, I'm never going to get that stamp of approval. How did you reconcile that and realize that that's okay? That again, we can't put our happiness, our validation, our satisfaction in the actions of another human being, because we may never get those things that we think we need.
So I'm going to change the frame a little bit. When I or you carry that need, I need that okay, I need that apology or that approval, I need that validation. And I carry that need. It's like carrying a bunch of rocks in your backpack. You are weighed down, you are restricted, you cannot love, you cannot serve, you are carrying weight you don't need. Now, if you live, or if I live, our whole lives waiting for that thing that may come, may not come, but I'm always burdened by that, I reduce by a huge amount my ability to love and serve. I reduce my ability to be empathetic and kind to others because I'm carrying these rocks. Forgiveness isn't something you give them. Give it to yourself. I don't even mean forgiving yourself. We'll get to that in a minute. All those people that trashed your life, forgive them. Not because they deserve it, not because there's no consequences. I'm not talking about absolution. I'm not talking about pretending it didn't happen. Stop carrying the rocks. Live your own life of love and freedom because you said so, because you can. That's what forgiving others does. It unburdens your heart. Like, they're going to have to handle their own stuff. They're going to have to handle it with whatever ultimate justice there is. That isn't ours to worry about. And as long as I keep carrying that, they can't wait for them to get what's due. How much energy has that sapped out of my heart and yours because I'm carrying that rock? Now, the flip side of that is forgiving yourself. For me, that was the most horrifying thing. I mean, given what I'd seen in that divine intervention and what I know, I made a list of one time of the periods of time when I was addicted and when I was clean and when I was addicted and when relationships failed. And it was a messy list. It was a messy list. The dishonesty, the lying, and everything else. And here's the truth. I'm going to say this really slow because I want it to sink in like it finally did for me. If I keep hating myself, again, I'm carrying a rock, a big bunch of rocks. And all that does, it gets in my way of loving and being empathetic and helping others because I'm too busy hating me. Your limitation, here's something people most don't understand. Your ability to love someone else is limited by your ability to love yourself. You cannot love another more than you love yourself. Now, I hear a bunch of people arguing, oh, I hate myself, but I love my friend, spouse, kid. You're lying to yourself. You're playing a role, and you won't understand that until you forgive yourself and you create that liberation. Be compassionate to yourself as well as others. The freedom you have by doing that is amazing. And it isn't about liberating you so much as it is allowing the truth of your divinity to shine through, to enhance your ability to love and serve others. Our Creator didn't send us here to live life like this the whole time. That's nonsense. And again, I'm not talking about pretending it didn't happen. I'm not talking about absolution. I'm not talking about expecting others to do anything. Maybe someone else is never going to forgive you. Maybe they're going to hate your guts your whole life. That's their choice. They're carrying those rocks for them. Okay? And I'm not talking about pretending it doesn't happen. If you got messes you made, clean them up as best you can. Like I said, I've still got kids that don't talk to me. I do everything that I can, and I'm open and I'm waiting. And the pain that I used to carry, hating myself, is gone because I have chosen to let it go so that I can do this for you here now, so that I can write the books that I have to do the good for others. Okay, I have kids that won't talk to me, so then I'm going to not do what I can do. Like, then there's double pain, double stupid. So forgiving yourself again is a gift. You not only give yourself, but you're giving a gift to all those that you can help.
Let's talk about helping people. You said you've written a bunch. I already forgot the number, but a lot of books.
Yeah.
Was it healing for you to write those, or was it a difficult process in the moment?
Both. The tightrope in the front, I wrote, I'm writing this book for 3 reasons. One, I need to. I need to tell the story. And it wasn't written as an accusatory, tell-all, angry. It was just a story, but I needed to write it. Number 2, I wrote it hoping that others that struggle with depression or other illnesses would find some hope and help. And number 3, I wrote it for those who care for those who have those kinds of situations, because I know that it really sucks. So it was hard to tell the truth to start with. Today, as I write, I'm right in the middle of one of the 6 I'm writing right now. I'm 1/3 of the way, a little more than 1/3 of the way through that. And the name of it is Forgiveness, a journey of courage to a place of peace and power. And it's going to talk about all the things that we've just talked about and how and why that's so important. And so now they're not hard to write. And I never even fancied myself an author. I didn't write one book during my entire executive career, all that other stuff. That all started after this. And it came from my determination to not let my experiences be in vain.
I'm looking at your background, which is very peaceful. We talked about that earlier. Tell me what you do for wellness for yourself.
I have a 2.5 to 3 hour morning ritual I do every day without fail. It goes centered around the acronym SPEM, S-P-E-M, spiritual, physical, emotional, mental. Spiritual includes meditation for a lengthy period of time. It's a period with all the chakra colors and all that jazz. My career was in electricity and hardcore science. So it's kind of weird, but that's okay. What I've learned is those powers are real, and I can either ignore them or I can get real comfortable with them. And I choose the latter. So there's a long period of meditation and prayer. I've done that enough years now that I regularly, I don't leave my meditation in the morning until I have received intuition, inspiration about the day. So that's just a requirement. Sometimes that takes a little while, and sometimes it takes longer. Then I do physical stuff to honor my body. The body is the container we have, and we have to take care of it, or it causes all kinds of problems for us. I don't have a terribly difficult workout, but it's pretty rigorous for about 15 or 20 minutes, doing some hardcore martial arts stretches and other stuff. I did that for lots of years of my life. Earned a black belt, second degree black belt in a couple of different styles. I used to do competitive blah, blah, blah. So that's the physical. The E is emotional. And that has to do with all of our relationships. So what I do is during meditation, I think of several people that come by intuition that I need to reach out to. And I either will send love, or if there's a repair attempt, if something isn't right, I'll send a message of repair or do something intentionally in the morning to reach out and touch relationships that matter. And of course, one of those is always Joy, my wife. The M is mental, and that is I have a massive desire and love for learning and growing. I just bought 2 more books today. Joy went to not Goodwill, but Value Village, it's called here in Canada. She likes to look for antiques. One thing she really is fabulous at is antique glassware. She can see stuff across the room, blow your mind. I used to be the pack rat. We lived in Phoenix for a long time, and people go to Phoenix to die, right? Florida. And so there's all these estate sales. And she used to we used to go to these auction houses every Wednesday night. And she'd say, I hope the auctioneer mispronounces that stuff, because she could tell what it was, and we'd buy it. And she's running eBay. She used to run antique stalls in physical places too. Anyway, so I can't remember why I told you that story. I lost. My train left the station.
Mental.
Mental. So I bought 2 books at Value Village today. One of them is Crucial Accountability, which talks about accountability methods. And one is called Zero Limits. It's a book written by Joe Vitale and some Hawaiian dude about Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian method of forgiveness and healing. And I've already read a couple chapters in it. And that it's 15. I have 30 books over there I'm in the middle of. So I'll read a chapter or 2 in some book every day, just to keep everything fluid and turning. And it's everything from quantum mechanics to self-help to whatever. So that's what I do. And I recite a long thing that I have called a PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment, which has those declarations of who I am in it. And I don't say them. Really important distinction between affirmations and declarations. Affirmations are these self-help tools that people usually don't believe, and they say over and over again to try to talk themselves into it. Those aren't very effective. Declarations, on the other hand, are choices and commitments that you make, not because you think you're perfect, but because you have chosen to be that thing. And regardless of the fact that you fail, you get up and recommit. You clean it up, you get up and you recommit. Not because somebody made you, not because of anything except because you can, because you said so. Those are powerful.
I love that. I love the declaration versus affirmation, because I was kind of laughing when you said affirmations are things we say that we don't believe, that we try to believe. So I think that's perfect.
The coach, he has a picture that he uses for that, and it's a big pile of dog poop, and then there's some frosting on it. And he said affirmations are like putting frosting on dog poop.
Tell me some wellness advice that you would give to everyone else.
Create a morning ritual. Like create, and it isn't, oh, I have to do this stupid thing that means I'm going to get even less sleep. No, create a ritual. You can use my SPEM framework or pick one of yourself. One that empowers you. Why? Because you can. Why? Because you choose to make yourself the best version of yourself every day. Why? Well, then don't be the best version of yourself. Be some second tier or third tier version. Why would you do that? The best thing you can ever do is create a meaningful morning ritual. And by that, I mean, play with it till it works. Play with it till it makes you feel good and want to be in your own life. That's the best advice. And it includes all the parts of your body, physical and spiritual and everything. So do that.
I love that, because I think people often do focus on one thing or the other. You know, it's like, oh, I'll meditate, but they don't do any physical activity or mental activity. So I love that you put everything in there. What about relationship advice? What would you give out as your top piece of relationship advice?
Well, coming from someone who failed umpteen million times.
Only 3.
Caveat in front of it. Well, there were a couple of other not marriages in between. So the most important piece of advice is tell the truth all the time, including to yourself. Okay. The second thing is have compassion for yourself, for them, and be that person that you would love to love. Like, be as kind as you wish them to be to you. Be as forgiving and compassionate as you wish to receive. Like, you know, people say, be the change you wish to see in the world. Do that. Like, if you go around looking for the person you need, that's the person of your dreams, good luck. If you go around, if your focus is on being the person that you have declared you want to be, your relationship will take care of itself. Like, if I read my personal truth statement, I am honesty and speak only truth. I am integrity. I do what I say. I am who I seem, with no camouflage, duplicity, or guile. I am compassion. I act only with kindness. You know, those are statements that I made for me because that's who I want to be. Well, if I focus on that, I don't really have time to worry about what Joy's doing. And lo and behold, it all works.
We have hit some very heavy topics here. You are so inspirational. Like, I want to just run out and change myself and change the world. Before I do that, though, I want to lighten the mood a little bit. We're going to do a little tattoo talk here. You don't know me that well, but I love tattoos. I have a lot of tattoos. We talked earlier about tattoos. So I want to hear about your tattoo and what it means to you.
So I have one, and it's on my back. It's a big Chinese dragon wrapped around a sword. I got it because of the martial arts stuff I'd done for a long time. I wasn't drunk or anything at the time. I got it. I went to a very well-known artist at the time. It was in Texas and near a military base where they have lots of that kind of stuff. I got it because I wanted to. It symbolizes, you know, the sword is the sword of truth. At the time, I was not clean and sober in terms of, it doesn't represent anything in terms of my recovery, except what I've chosen to make it be in terms of my recovery. I did it partly as sort of a rebellious thing because I'm a big shot, I can do whatever I want kind of guy and pay a bunch of money. Yeah, kind of thing. And I have chosen and declared that it reminds me that I hold and carry the sword of truth at all times. The dragon's a beautiful decoration all wrapped around it. I don't know. Right. But that's the one I have. It's on the right side of my back. It's very many colors, very, very well done. And it's about 15 years old now.
Is it, you said it's on the right side of your back, pretty large?
Yeah, doesn't quite fill up half the back, but
I mean, that's a lot for your first tattoo as well. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they did it all in one sitting, and I sat there for hours.
And sober.
Sober, stone cold sober.
There you go. Kellan, where can people find you? You have books. I think you have music. You coach. If people are connected to you and want more, where do they go?
Well, one of the fun things is with a name like Kellan Fluckiger, I'm really easy to find. There are 2 out of 8 billion in the world, and the other one's my son. Okay. So if you spell my name right and put it in on Amazon, you'll see books, you'll see music. Yeah, I've owned a recording studio and then all kinds of that for decades. I did music that's connected with the 2 books I've written on depression. I have a website. I didn't have any trouble getting my name, www.kellanfluckiger.com. No competition. So my website, I'm on social media, on Facebook. I use Facebook Messenger a lot. I'm on, LinkedIn and stuff. I don't use that as much. So I'm not hard to find. I welcome anyone that wants to connect to do so. My email is coachkellanfluckiger.gmail.com or @gmail.com. Nothing complicated. Go to Amazon and put my name. Go to Google and put my name in. There's thousands of hits because of my executive stuff. It's all
and because it's just you.
I was one of those people that was a one name person because Fluckiger was so hard to say. And so in the big dog days, the CEOs that were gathering would only ask, is Kellan coming? Because that's all they could pronounce and everybody knew who Kellan was.
It's pretty cool when you can be known by one name.
Well, I think it was, I don't know if it was anything other than the last name was so hard to say, but I was a one name guy. And yes, I had bodyguards at one time and personal security and all that stuff happened too. So, yeah.
Kellan, you have been amazing. I truly appreciate you taking the time to share not only your story, but so much amazing advice that I know we can all take forward to be better and happier individuals. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And my only goal is to help people discover, develop, manifest their divine nature. We didn't even get into the interesting thing. I died 3 years ago, and one of the books is Meeting God at the Door, Conversations, Choices, and Commitments of a Near-Death Experience. And that has nothing to do with the divine intervention that happened in 2007. That was 10 years later in 2018.
So we're going to have to do a part 2. I'm in. All right. Thank you so much, Kellan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I really hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Kellan as much as I did. I truly appreciate his willingness to open up about his past and to share with us the things that we can do to declare who we are and who we want to be. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it.